I heard Barack Obama say something recently which I found really inspiring. He said, "We are the first generation to really feel the effects of climate change, and we're the last generation that can do anything about it." And that really struck a chord with me because I thought about youth today, and I thought about the kind of world that young people are growing up in today and how different it is from the world I grew up in. For them, things like scarcity, affordability, poverty, food quality, social inequity, these are things that they face and they see every day. And the media and social media are bringing that to them in a way that I never saw when I was growing up. The response that this generation has to this kind of environment is to actually start taking responsibility for the future. Again, in a way that young generations simply have not done before. And it's interesting for me as a mother of a teenager, and he is exceptionally painful in many, many ways, but there are other ways that he's actually really adorable and that I'm really proud of him in the way that he thinks about his impact on the world and the impact of all of us on the planet and the world that we're living in today. And I guess I think back to what I was like at that age, and there is a big difference. And we are seeing that played out in the research that we're doing with this young generation and that we have been doing across the last 6 years. So I just want to share a couple of things with you about where they're at and what they're thinking. So I think this is it. And I am going to stuff this up, but I'll give it a go. This is talking to you this way and that, like that. Millennials, or Gen Y, they're basically the under 35s. There's another generation coming up behind them called Gen Z. This is tipped to be the most socially and environmentally conscious generation yet. And from what I'm hearing about Gen Z, they're even more so. They're also digital natives, and Matthew's talked a lot about that, and that means that the collective power of this generation to drive change amongst business and governments is something we have never seen before. And they are loving it, and they are doing it. I heard this morning that the hot topic trending on Twitter around the world relates to the Syrian refugee crisis. Here in New Zealand, Kiwis are saying to John Key, our populist Prime Minister, come on, hashtag double the quota. It's time for us to start taking a stand on things. These types of issues are being driven by a new generation that is saying, actually, I want to make a difference, I want to make an impact, and I know that I can change the world. And they are going to do it. They're dead set on doing that. They are our consumers and our leaders of the future. These are the people that will be coming into organisations to make decisions on what that organisation does and what they stand for. And I personally am feeling really positive and optimistic about that because of the way that they think. They're also a generation that's less likely to drink alcohol, smoke, drive a car, own their own home. I heard a beautiful comment from a young girl, a 17-year-old, to somebody probably about my age who said, we've got to stay sober because we've got to fix up the mess of the planet that you've left behind for us. So there you go. Other youth culture icons are starting to get into this because they see that this is a massive trend for young people. Young people are important because they're the target audience of many of the businesses and brands and organisations in the world today. Business is really interested in what young people think, and young people care about who you are and what you stand for more than ever before. Waste is only waste if we waste it. That's an unlikely hero and a rap artist who's out there making hotel quality premium sheets out of all those old Coke plastic bottles that we've heard about swimming around in the ocean. There are fashion brands and manufacturers who for many years have been looking at making clothes and products beautiful quality out of waste. Generation Y is a generation that is starting a whole raft of wonderfully purpose-driven, sustainable organisations that are starting to try and address some of the issues that we're facing as a world today. They are starting revolutions, like Who Made Your Clothes, in response to issues with unethical and unfair practices in many of the industries that they're buying from. They're also moving into our businesses. I had a chat with one of our new graduates the other day, and I said to her, "Why did you choose to work for Colmar Brunton?" And she said, "Well, I went on the website and I had a look at who you were and what your values were and what you stood for, and they're the same as mine. And I knew that this is the organisation that I wanted to be with." I thought, what a wonderful thing to say. You're a future leader. They are choosing in great numbers to work for organisations that they believe in, and they won't work for organisations that they don't. So they are an incredibly important audience for businesses to engage in your story about who you are and what you want to achieve. They are talking with their wallets. We're seeing purchase of ethical, sustainable, socially and environmentally friendly products increase across all generations, but it is increasing the fastest amongst Generation Y. It's up 10% in the last year. The intention to continue to purchase more and more and more of these types of products and brands. And they're more willing than any other generation to pay a little bit more for it, because they absolutely get the value proposition. Yeah, I can see this is good. All profits are not created equal. Good profits are better profits, and I want to stand behind the organisations that are delivering that. They understand the fact that organisations working in this area are actually improving the world for tomorrow, and they're prepared to make an investment in that. There are many people who are starting now to pick the demise of some of the industries that we see and we're using every day. And I love this quote from this guy who's a past hairdresser, who's had his hands in amongst chemicals for most of his life and has set up his own business now with organic hair products. Now, there are many categories that are being disrupted by the new values that we're starting to see in business today. Look at Airbnb, look at Uber, look at some of these new providers coming in and saying, actually, we're not going to do it that way anymore, and suddenly you're completely irrelevant. Just referring back to some of the things that Matthew was saying, and I think I'm going to be repeating some of the stuff that he said, absolutely get rid of the S word. Nobody understands it. It's meaningless. It has no emotion in it. It has no feeling. It has nothing for people to engage with. People want to choose brands that have a clear purpose. And I think it would be fair to say that there is not one business, no matter how long it's been around, that didn't actually start with a really clear purpose and a reason for being, something that they wanted to achieve, something that they wanted to change or have an impact on. Some of them have lost that along the way. But you need to go back to that and ask yourself a really simple question. How am I going to make a positive difference in the lives of my customers, in the lives of my stakeholders, in the world at large? Make sure that you're genuine about it. Make sure that it's connected to your brand, because you're not going to get the payback if you don't connect it clearly to your brand. Be inspiring in the way that you communicate it and make it relevant to who you are and what you're doing. You need to make sure it's easy for people to connect all those dots together. It needs to make sense, because we don't like to think too hard about stuff as people. And I guess the last thing I'd like to say is there's no shortage of organisations with great purposes. We work with them every day. Wonderful intent, a wonderful reason for being, but they're just not getting that message out there in a way that people are understanding. 81% of consumers think what they're hearing is confusing and hard to understand. That doesn't mean it can't be done. In New Zealand, look at Air New Zealand, Meridian, Z Energy, wonderful organisations that are standing up to be counted and making an impact with consumers in the way they're connecting their stories to their brands. It's a wonderful opportunity ahead of us all, as Matthew said. There's risks, but there's also massive opportunities for the brands and organisations that get it right. We have decades of consumers and employees who want to get behind us to make it all happen.